Hello, Professor. This is my presentation on the history of Puerto Rico and its lack of voting rights with the United States. So to start with a little introduction, I chose this topic because we have seen in recent years, specifically under the new presidential administration, the U.S. and Puerto Rico in the news with a little bit of political turmoil between the two. And I myself am not Puerto Rican and do not know much about Puerto Rican history, so this project was a little bit of a challenge, but a good challenge. However, what I was aware before starting this project is that Puerto Ricans do not have voting rights when it comes to U.S. elections. Therefore, the purpose of this project was to dig deeper into the history of Puerto Rico and the United States in hopes of solving the question as to why these citizens do not have voting rights. So a little introduction. The U.S. acquired the territory of Puerto Rico as a result of the Spanish-American War ending in 1898. However, Puerto Rico and its people would not become citizens, and I put citizens in quotation marks, as you'll see why, until 1917. So upon further research, to better understand the decision-making of the United States in not giving Puerto Ricans voting rights and full citizenship, essentially, is the insular cases. What are the insular cases? The insular cases were a series of opinions by the U.S. Supreme Court justices that decided, although Puerto Ricans are technically citizens, that does not mean they receive full constitutional rights, specifically the right to vote. And these cases took place in 1901. When we further examine the insular cases opinions, we can further see that this decision to withhold certain constitutional rights from Puerto Ricans was one based off ignorance and racism, and you will see why. So some data that I found to back up my argument that this is based off ignorance and racism, and just the fact that there's really no reason that Puerto Ricans should not receive full constitutional rights, specifically the right to vote. So I thought I'd pull up to support my argument the stats on the amount of Puerto Rican veterans America has had in its history. And it goes all the way back to World War I. In World War I, about 236,000 Puerto Ricans registered for the draft, and close to 20,000 were drafted. In World War II, the Army's 65th Infantry Regiment, a segregated Hispanic unit made up primarily of Puerto Ricans, was sent to Panama in the Pacific in 1943, and by 1944 was sent to France. And they participated in multiple battles throughout France and Italy. And they lost, I believe it said, about 23 men. And about 60,000 Puerto Ricans were providing security among the Caribbean islands in U.S. territories, were serving in Europe during World War II. During the Korean War, about 61,000 Puerto Ricans served and including about 18,000 Puerto Ricans, mainland continental Puerto Ricans, from the United States who registered, so 61,000 total. During the Vietnam War, an estimated 48,000 Puerto Ricans served in the 4 different branches of the armed forces. And in the Gulf War in 1990, about 1,700 Puerto Rican National Guardsmen were among the 20,000 Hispanics deployed to the Persian Gulf in Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield as part of the Gulf War. As of 2010, the Veterans Affairs Department listed Puerto Rico's veterans at 116 and 29,000. More than 1,225 Puerto Ricans have died while serving for the United States. The names of those who perished in combat are inscribed in the El Monumento de la Recordación. I do not speak good Spanish. The Monument of Remembrance, which was unveiled in May of 1996 and is in front of the Capitol building in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And that's also the background of this slide. So I just thought I would show this to show how much more it is ridiculous that territories like Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico's not alone, other territories have lots of veterans like Guam and the Virgin Islands. But just to show in general that it's ridiculous that Puerto Ricans do not have the right to vote, and how wrong that we keep this going off the insular cases. Therefore, to conclude, I think the reason I chose this topic was I feel it's important that people understand the history of the United States and Puerto Rico with this debate going on as to whether or not Puerto Rico should be a state. And I think it's important for people for U.S. citizens to understand that there are U.S. citizens in the world, because Puerto Ricans are fully U.S. citizens, who do not have the same protected constitutional rights as their fellow citizens, like I myself have, being born and raised in New York my whole life. Furthermore, it was important for me to express where this century-old decision comes from, to see that it comes from a place of ignorance and racism. And this is important to me because as a history major, I am always hopeful that the more people truly understand some of the wrongs in our history as a society, the sooner we can resolve them. And the issue of Puerto Rico and its voting rights, or lack thereof of voting rights for, I don't like to say its citizens, because its citizens are our citizens. So the lack of voting rights for U.S. citizens. And I think this is really something that people need to understand going forward, given where we are in our political climate. So to conclude, I hope that by presenting this issue out there, more people understand it. Thank you.